right, my lover, and welcome to the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. You want to say that? Do the subtitles, Chris? Say that in normal people language.
Normal people language. All right, my lovers. Why are you all cowboy carrot? Not cow. Yeah, farmer karaoke.
It ain't no farm boy karaoke, Chris. I ain't not even sung or nothing.
Oh my god, they're just probably.
I've been hanging around with locals today. I went on a boat.
Oh, okay.
You see. Now, what's today's podcast about? Because I don't want to say something that will upset other people, because I'm not that way inclined, Chris. I hate upsetting people.
Oh, sure, yeah, whatever you say. So I think what we were going to talk about today was kind of this idea of atheist paganism, or kind of non-secular paganism. The idea where, not non-secular, secular paganism. I don't know. I can't think of words. I'm tired.
Atheist pagan. I'm an atheist pagan. Oi, yeah. I'm an atheist pagan. I ain't a religious pagan. So you read a lot of Richard Dawkins, but are a pleb from the countryside. Is that what you're trying to say, love?
Yeah, I'm a bit. I get confused by it because I'm of that kind of thought of, well, either you believe in gods or you don't. And atheism, in my understanding, was always that I don't believe in God. But they often try and dissuade that, don't they, by referring to God with the big G, not God with the little G.
Big Daddy. No, so Big Daddy's the one with
little G.
Isn't it? Yeah, the little G. Little G, Big Daddy, little G. Yeah.
Big G.
Big G. What's the little G?
Little G is when you start to talk about multiples of gods.
Oh.
Where they suddenly start to become little G.
So what about the Susses?
Huh?
The Susses, you know, the goddesses. The goddesses.
No, just
the lady ones.
They're still with little G's. My point is, when it's big G, they're normally referring to,
monotheistic. The big G is monotheistic. The little G is the opposite, pantheistic. All the
polytheistic.
Polytheistic, that's it. The polytheistic always makes me think of polythene and plastic.
Oh, okay.
So, are you religious, Chris?
No.
Are you pagan?
You know I struggle with that word. So I
struggle to spell it, or what?
No, you know I struggle with the word.
I
don't feel like I can claim that word. But for me, it comes down to worship.
But Mr. Chris, they don't claim the word; they reclaim it. Like some old cobble songs. That's what's all big in the 21st century, Chris. It's all about reclaiming. You say it's all about we're reclaiming this, we're reclaiming that. Honey, you were born not that long ago. I don't think you're in a position to reclaim anything. I don't think it was taken away from you, was it? No. You're going on about some tribe that lived a long time ago and it's got fuck all to do with you.
Yeah. So I personally struggle with the word pagan, and I quite often have to explain myself when I go to moots and things, because people will kind of go, but you're pagan though, right? And you're kind of like, no, I'm not quite sure I should be here. I'm definitely, we've talked about it before, haven't we? I'm quite happy claiming the word witch. What I have a struggle with is the word, because obviously the word witch isn't totally comfortable with you, is it? But we won't go down there. We've covered that before. Whereas the word pagan still means country bumpkin to me. But that's,
do you see it as an insult?
It's classical.
Do you see the word pagan as an insult?
I find the word pagan insulting, yes.
So I always found it insulting, and I never liked it, nor do I would never call myself a pagan, but other people just assume that I'm a pagan. And I first for a long time have found that it would be more of an insulting word on two levels. Don't get me wrong, it's not just one kind of BS academic-y kind of level. It is multiple levels, but I still find it a little bit. It kind of is a jerk reaction. Still, I'm around people that call themselves pagans and stuff like that, and there are one or two people that go around calling themselves pagans that I do respect and like. So that's certainly helped flavour it in a positive light. But ultimately, I either think if someone's calling me a pagan, I'm thinking some uneducated hick from the countryside, which many would say that that is true. I am an uneducated hick that lives in the countryside, but it's rude to call someone that, even if they are. Like, you're not supposed to call someone fat, even if they are fat, Chris, in this day and age. I don't necessarily want to be called an uneducated hick that lives in the countryside, even if I am one, because it's rude. I consider it to be rude, right? Also, what I tend to do in my mind, because of the way my mind works, I equate things together. So when someone calls me one thing, I think of all the other things that I associate with that word. So when someone calls me a pagan, I'm thinking crushed velvet, smelly, overweight, doesn't know much about magic, buys a lot of plastic statues and worships them. Now, I'm not saying that that is the whole of the pagan community. However, when I type pagan into a Google search engine or something like that, that is tends to happen to be what comes up. Now, some people would find that very insulting, and to a certain extent, it is insulting. But don't take that up with me because I'm an uneducated hick from the countryside. You need to take that up with Google, because paganism in the modern world, that's essentially how it is being marketed. I'm sorry, not sorry. It is kind of being, marketed by putting plastic ribbons in a tree and all that. And I know that not all pagans do that, but at the same time, when we really go down deep, and I speak about a lot of these people that say that they're pagans, I ask, how attached to that word are you? Most of them aren't really attached. They're just using it as kind of a blasé language to try and say, well, actually, I'm open-minded and I believe in recycling and stuff like that, which in itself is potentially a problem. But, it's lazy language, isn't it? Is it just lazy language? I don't know, because I'm an uneducated hick from the countryside.
To be fair, it's one of those words that it's become what we call something, which is why I get a bit, I don't know, why I feel a bit uncomfortable with it. I think there may become a time when, especially with all these Insta witches about, where I won't find the word witch comfortable anymore.
Oh yeah.
And it is getting closer and closer, the day where I can't claim that title anymore.
Completely
without adding another word to it, like classical witch or whatever, because they've ruined it.
Yes.
But ultimately, we can't do a massive amount about that. So we can accept we don't like the word pagan, but we're confused by it.
You could, but we'd be accused of doing what many great evil dictators have done in the past with regards to cleansing certain people. Obviously, it wouldn't be necessarily people that have, certain characteristics. Instead, it would be Muppets that call themselves pagans. You'd have to start, or witches. You'd have to start cleansing all of them, getting rid of all of them. And to be honest with you, I'm not that sort of person that likes the whole, murder, genocide type thing. We're getting a lot of buzzwords. I hope the algorithm likes this.
I don't know. It may actually categorize us in the other side of county lines, and then at that point, we won't be able to be on YouTube anymore. But it's one of those things. You like to keep pushing the letter, as they say. So that's what will happen, and we'll just have to accept it.
I like to have conversations. Unfortunately, the conversations I like to have, you're not allowed to have anymore, Chris, regardless of whether I am on the same side ultimately as a lot of the people that implement the rules and of say apparently what you are and aren't allowed to have conversation about. Because it used to be what you are and aren't allowed to think or believe. You were on the right side or you were on the wrong side. Now, even if you're on the right side and have the right politics, and by right politics, I mean left politics, funnily enough, it's all very confusing, isn't it? Even if you do have the right left politics, you're still not allowed to have the conversation in the first place, you see, which I find, well, if honestly, it drives me more to the right side of the right side. I like to be balanced in an equilibrium. My Libra tendency is to be in the middle, be very centrist, but I just have no home anymore because there's no left, there's no right, there's no center. I don't understand all of this stuff. And all I know is that I am evil and wrong and bad because of the things I don't realize I believe in, because I haven't ever been able to have a conversation with them to find out what I do believe in or what I don't believe in. This has all gotten very political and all about freedom of speech,
Yeah, and
which
I
is
know, I
definitely.
know, I know this is supposed to be an episode about paganism, but I thought we'd have avoided politics at the very least, Liam. It's like going to one of these pagan moots again, where all they want to do is talk about politics instead of witchcraft. So I'm going to call time on that, and we're going to get back to the point, Liam.
Quite
So
right.
the
Quite
whole point of discussing the word pagan was to kind of, deal with this new amalgamation that seems to happen a lot, which is, well, there's two of them, and I'd like to talk about both of them, but we'll start with the one that's actually in the title, which is this combination of atheist pagan, which, what I used to understand, English language said that's what's called an oxymoron, where
yeah.
you put two words together that mean the opposite. So I'm often confused by this point because I don't understand. And I did just check online while you were rambling about politics for a definition
Oh,
for what an atheist is.
yeah.
And the Oxford Dictionary likes the phrase "a person who disbelieves or lacks belief in the existence of God or gods." So there, it actually expands it to include polytheism,
Yeah.
which obviously is what pagan sits under, is
Nowadays,
polytheism.
basically, yeah.
So if that's the case, then how do you make yourself an atheist god? An atheist pagan, because essentially you're talking about having atheism in a system that is designed to appreciate multiple forms of divinity. My
Well,
first thought is,
it's not too dissimilar from us. I mean, we may gravitate towards and sit within pagan moots and attend pagan moots and gatherings and such. And we do the very simple thing of saying, I kind of like you guys, but I'm not one of you. Right? Get that clear. I'm not one of you guys. I like you. I'm friendly towards you. I think it might be cool to do stuff together, but I'm not one of you. And this is kind of like the, well, actually, I'm an atheist, but I kind of like the spiel and politics and dressy up sides of paganism that what I see from the Google images and such. Therefore, I want to remain not following a religion because I dislike religion because I'm an atheist, and disagree with it and don't think that I know anything or can know anything. Well, that's technically more agnostic, I guess, isn't it? But I'd also like to come and dress up like you guys and do a ritual in the woods, which will actually end up in being in someone's living room because it was raining that day and we can't be going out in the rain, can we? Because we're neo-pagans. Oh, there's that buzzword as well, neo-pagan. Nearly pagan.
no, we're not going there about the neo-Wiggins.
Neo-pagan does not mean nearly pagan, as I like to tell everyone it means. It actually means new pagan. I know that, but I still like to use neo-pagan when I address someone that I think doesn't quite cut the mustard. Because I'm not a very nice person. But I'm allowed to be not a nice person for now.
For now. So yeah, so kind of for me, it's that conflict of the two that makes no sense to me. Because although, you give a good enough argument to say, yes, we turn up and say we're not pagans, but we are witches. I don't think that's quite the same. That sentence says, from us, is basically saying, I don't do worship, because that's the big word that I kind of associate with paganism, is it's still worship. So I don't you know, and some people would probably argue otherwise, which is where these atheist pagans come in, I think,
Mm,
is people would argue that, oh, you don't have to worship in order to be pagan. But then they tell you about their practice, and their practice is definitely worship.
mm,
So you creating an altar space for a deity and basically saying, this is your spot. I'm going to feed you 3 times a week with this spring water. Is in itself a form of worship. It is about giving space to an idol in the hopes that the entity will take up a seat there. You
or
know,
basically begging.
it's begging. So,
Yeah.
for lack of any other phrase, that is what it is. It is begging. It's petition work. So, I find it's a tricky one for me because I don't see how, you know, unless it's one of these hipster things where they're trying to be ironic,
Mm,
because that was the one during the noughties, wasn't it? Oh, he's just trying to be ironic. And you're kind of like, no, you're a moron. But anyway, the bit that I can't get used to is that how can you not believe, should we say, in deities, but class yourself as part of a group that is about worshipping deities in the plural? I
but
just
Chris, how can one such as yourself work with deities and consider yourself not to be pagan or religious? It's really quite simple, I think. But then I'm on the same lines as you, so you're basically preaching to the choir with what you're probably about to say. But say it anyway.
well, again, it comes down to this word worship. To
Mm,
me, I accept that they exist. There are bigger entities than myself in this current corporeal form.
mm,
Just to add that little bit of ego in. The so at the you know, I accept there are other entities other than me, and other than humanity, and I accept that some of them have more power based on the fact that they don't have bodies,
mm.
physical ones, that is. So you know, there is that kind of aspect of kind of going, I know these exist and I work with them. There's no worship. At the end of the day, I don't go, you know, thank you very much, love. I'm really grateful. Obviously, I just realised you can't see me, and I thought we were on Fausty for a second because I did miming and everything.
It's probably
Um,
for the best.
but you know, that kind of tip your forelock, kind of, yes, sir, master, sir, thank you very much. Um, because I don't do any of that, and I work with them as if they were another client, which is that I think is the bit where
Yes.
we match and would talk about in the same essence is not only do I work for done work for deities, deities have worked for me. There is that kind of reciprocal relationship of kind of going, okay, there are things I can do that a deity can't do, and then you kind of go in, but Chris, that sounds blasphemous and all that bollocks.
Well, you don't worship them, so it can't be blasphemous, can it? You see them as
So,
colleagues,
yeah,
very important parts of a team, and a team is established with multiple things, multiple people, entities, whatever, in order to do something, a piece of work. And people bring, and deities, everyone brings something to the table. That's how you work with it. It's big boy stuff, isn't it? Big
it
boy,
is.
big girl stuff. Not, oh, the university professor is oh so clever. It's, I'm a university professor. I'm just from a different department. Let's pull together as a team to accomplish this specific piece of work because there are things that have positions and experience in things that I may be not as good with or have less experience in. It's big boy stuff, big girl stuff, big boy and girl magic, something that you don't tend to see a lot of. The very few people that do practice that keep it a secret, to dare to know and then to keep silent. Why is that? Why can you not find big magics, big workings, big relationships with spirits realistically kind of talked about publicly? I wonder. Why
I
is
think a lot of I think a lot of it comes down to the very simple, you know, mob. What's the word I want?
Is it also
mob mentality, this
right?
kind of people measure themselves against others that they think are the same as them. So therefore, like I said, like we've said at the beginning of this, pagan has become that word, like witch is becoming that word of it's been quote unquote reclaimed, and therefore they have used that word to identify themselves, and others that think they understand what that word means flock to pair themselves and compare themselves to them. So before you know it, it's this huge thing, and everybody is an expert on the matter, and ultimately they all agree that they're all amazing. What they're not aware of is that people are practicing above them in a different way for a lot longer, and not to kind of bring up that argument, because you know how much the I've been practicing 40 years bollocks we're used to having. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in whether or not you have access to all the other times you've been a witch or something bigger, and are able to actually tap into multiple lifetimes of experience, not just the one you're in now. So, you know, that to me is where the kind of the big boy pants are on, and you kind of go in, okay, when I want to know that you have access to the whole branch, not just the leaf you're currently sat in. And can you access that experience as a whole? You know, are you capable of looking at yourself and your practice from other versions of your eyes, shall we say? So, you know, there is that kind of part for me that I get frustrated with, and I think others do, and then they just retract themselves from being out in those communities because they know there's, or they fear there are no others like them, and I think that's when they hide off. I think that's, to be honest, what No Holds Barred and Witchcraft Live do for a lot of people, is it's that hidden space where they don't have to tolerate that kind of bullshit. Do you know what I mean? I think that's kind of why it's slowly becoming this quite, you know, for lack of a better word, elite little group that actually are practicing, or should be. Otherwise, you're in the wrong place. Get out. But there is that kind of aspect of, oh, well, they found this community within the community that actually is doing what they want to be doing, and they want to be meeting that, so that they can really use the word witch and mean it. But I think you'd struggle to find people in our groups, to be honest, that probably don't use the word pagan either. And I certainly guarantee they don't use the word atheist pagan.
I think there's a problem in our communities that we've set up, and also communities in general, whether that be of religious nature or what. People are trying to, in communities, unfortunately and fortunately, trying to create communities. Which basically means they're looking for shared belief, shared systems, similarities. And here's the big danger with that, because at its core, you're an individual, and all of your experience and your path is unique to you. And you know, whether that would be this incarnation specifically, or you know, you can look at it on multiple levels as well, I know. But ultimately, you get a group of people that look like they have similar beliefs and practices, but they are different. They will have different experiences, abilities, directions that they're going down. And it's where you draw the line in terms of trying to create a community. And the problems come very often with forgetting that everyone's different, and no one else's practice or belief or anything like that ultimately matters. It doesn't matter. The only one that matters is yours personally. Now, what people do is they create communities of similar minded people that they find will help them. Similarities, because obviously humans and community and that kind of go hand in hand as part of our psychology and that, and evolution and that. But to a certain extent, also helping you along your path. If there's someone on a similar path, you may learn and be assisted on your path by their experience and beliefs and, you know, shared experiences and such like that. I think we always need to remember that we are in a minority, the biggest minority of them all, and that is the minority of one. It's always going to be the biggest problem. And looking out and judging other people's practices and such is perfectly fine and normal for a human to do. How you judge those people, we can have a debate about, because some people would judge them saying, oh, that person over there knows nothing, when actually that person over there potentially knows quite a lot and has their beliefs and practices been tested over a lot of time, and their practices and beliefs have developed from the experience that that individual person has that you don't know about, and therefore has just looked at someone doing something and just prejudged it, you know. But at the same time, you can look at some people and you can think, you're trying to obtain something that I've already obtained, and I know because I've obtained it and I know how it works. You're not going in the right direction there. You know, it is a little difficult. It's very strange, and with the idea of community and stuff, it gets very nasty and very dodgy when everyone suddenly has to believe and think and work in the same way. Now, the communities we try to create are not based on similarity of belief or practice. What it is based on is the idea that people are using magic as a means of exploration and development.
Yeah.
That is what our community is about. It's not about paganism. It's not about witchcraft. It's not about lighting candles and doing spells and shit like that. What it is about using magic as a means of discovery, exploration, and to enhance your life power. It is a tool, right? Us tools have created this tool, resource, community for you tools to get something out of that. Now, whether you get something out of it or whether you don't, who knows? People do get something out of it. A lot of people get lots of different things out of it. Lots of people don't get the things out of it that we want, because the people that are joined, some of the people that actually come just for some entertainment, you know, they come to a community of people that are designed, that's basically been designed to help people study magic, develop further in the practice of magic, just to laugh and find it amusing, which is fine if that's what you want to get from the community. That's what you get from the community, but obviously it's not how we established it. But at the same time, we just put a little bit of we're just catalysts. We put a little bit of fuel there, we put a little bit of something there, and the community becomes the people, doesn't it? It's all about the people.
Ultimately, it's one of those things where, again, as humans, one of our biggest flaws is we have to compare ourselves to other people. And although I think what we've created is some of the best communities that are, you know, out there for this field, I'm still feeling that actually they still compare each other against each other, and actually, you know, occasionally need reminding that, I don't know about you, but I've found witches that have more practice in their first year and a day than they have in their 30th or 50th year. So how long you've been practicing is of no use to me whatsoever. I need to know what you're actually capable of doing. But to kind of pick up on what you'd said about magic,
you got 1 minute.
It's not about. It's not about. No, this is about to catalyst onto the next side. But it's a case of going, okay, you've got these atheist pagans, but now from what you just said about using the word magic, and actually not being about witchcraft, but about how you wield and study magic, is this other phrase I can't stand, which is I'm a skeptic witch.
Oh.
Now, this idea that you can wield magic and at the same time not believe it exists. But obviously, you're going to have to do your wrap up now. I'm going to have to pick this up the other side.
Well, you're going to talk about that on the next, on the second half, the Patreon only extended edition of the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast. I'm going to tell them what the right religion is. It's a nice little bit of clickbait. So there we go. Liam's going to tell you what religion you should be practicing, the only one that actually matters, the correct one. Yeah. So you need to join the No Holds Barred Witchcraft podcast.